I am in the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge right now, and we're at the launch site. We're doing a 3-day trip into the swamp. We've got 12 miles to the first campsite, a platform out in the middle of the swamp. So we got to get our gear unloaded, packed up, and hit the water. Paddle Tales is brought to you by Hurricane Kayaks, NRS, Aquabound, Wiley X, and Outdoor Play. So we're at the launch site. We're about to head off on a 3-day trip into the swamp, and this is the kind of trip I absolutely love. It's my favorite type of trip, kayak camping, although Dan's taking a canoe, which is great because that means we're gonna load a little bit more food, a bit more gear than we might if we're just kayak camping. I am actually taking a kayak and I'm testing a new kayak. I'm testing the Hurricane Tampico 130. 3 days of testing. That should be a good test, but we have 12 miles to paddle today to get to our first campsite. So I better stop talking and I better start unloading and packing my kayak because we got to hit the water. We're right here.
Yep, we're starting today at the Kingfisher Landing, which is our northeastern entrance. We're gonna be heading down what's called the King's Canal, which was originally dug as a peat mining canal, and that's our access point here. Up to Mall Hammock tonight, really wide open prairie through today's paddle, and then tomorrow, we're gonna make a turn into the middle fork of the Suwannee River, and following the middle fork down, Big Water is gonna be our second overnight stop, and then paddling out here to Stephen C. Foster State Park, our western entrance.
Right on, total length?
Total length about 31 miles altogether.
Sweet.
It's gonna be a beautiful paddle.
Well,
let's do it.
Onward.
The trail we're paddling today is very maintenance intensive. We're gonna go through some areas just like this, very dense brush where it's taken a lot of work to keep this trail open and maintained. So we really give a lot of thanks to the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge staff and the work they put in out here to make it possible to canoe and kayak these areas, because this is not a natural water trail we're going to be on today. We're going to be meeting the Suwannee River tomorrow and paddling that for a few days. But this water trail today, it took a lot of work to open up and it takes a lot of work to maintain. So thank you to the folks who put in all that work.
This section is considered an advanced section, largely because of the remote nature of the section, and because in particular the first day of the paddle is 12 miles. And if you have great conditions, like we seem to today, then it shouldn't be so bad. But you have strong wind and you have some weather to contend with, then it can be a real challenge. 6 miles in, 6 more to go. No problem. So all this vegetation is, for the most part, it's actually floating. It's not rooted right into the ground.
Right, yeah, out here in the peat bog environment of these peat prairies, basically all the organic debris that falls into the water isn't gonna fully decompose because the water is an anaerobic environment. There's not oxygen to fuel decomposition, and they'll slowly decompose with the help of anaerobic bacteria that release methane gas. They'll become buoyant and pop up off the bottom of the swamp, forming floating islands that become the platform for beautiful vegetation and little floating gardens that eventually are going to become a large forested island covered with cypress trees. You can see when I push on the paddle, this whole area is floating actually on the surface of the water. And the origin of the word Okefenokee is a Native American word that meant land of the trembling earth, because of how this environment will just move and shake underneath your feet when you walk through there.
You know, there's 2 real factors that dictate what type of a paddling experience you're going to have. It's obviously the environment that you're in. That has a big impact. But then it's the people you're paddling with. And when you paddle with a naturalist like Dan, it's also like a crash course in biology.
That's the blue flag iris, the Calopogon tuberosus, tuberous grass pink, yellow pitcher plant over here, Sarracenia flava, Pagonia ophioglossoides, the rose Pagonia orchid. It's not one that grows all over the refuge, so when I see it, I get really excited. Well, a naturalist is a natural interpreter, somebody, you know, well acquainted with the area they're working in, who can put things into simple, plain language and help people to understand and learn about the environment they're in. People think of the swamp as being a dark, dank place, scary, but it's really beautiful, and getting a chance to come out here with somebody knowledgeable to the area is a really fantastic experience to really gain some knowledge and gain some appreciation for this environment.
Oh, wow. Ha, ha, ha. That looks like a good home for the night. Coming around the corner and seeing the Mall Hammock Shelter, it's one of the most welcoming campsites I've ever seen. Home sweet home.
I'm ready for dinner.
Oh, dinner. When you think about camping in a swamp, camping on such a luxurious platform is not what comes to mind. But that's the joy of this place. Camping does not get much better than this.
Backcountry camping out here on our platforms is a really unique experience, and they're very comfortable campsites. They all have a roof and a picnic table and a bathroom right there for you, often just placed right out in the middle of the swamp. It's an amazing experience to have all the wildlife right around you, and the night sounds are just incredible.
Well, what an amazing 12 miles of paddling, finished with chicken Alfredo amongst a chorus of frogs. Doesn't get any better than this, except for the fact that we get to do this again tomorrow. Love it. What a beautiful night we just had. Clear, clear skies, no moon, the stars were out, and it dropped down to about 50 degrees, which was really refreshing after such a hot day. Dan's cooking up breakfast right now, and we're getting a slow, relaxed start, even though we still have 9 miles to go today to the next camp spot. Should be an interesting day. The terrain is going to change quite a bit as we get into the Swanee River itself, but I'm going to enjoy every minute before we hit the water. Off we go.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See you, Mall Hammock.
Mall Hammock. It's day 2 of our 3-day trip across Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, and we've got 9 miles to cover today. We're paddling from Mall Hammock to Big Water Shelter, and I'm looking forward to it. So Dan, what do we got in store for us today?
Well, we've got about 9 miles from Mall Hammock down to Big Water. The first 2 miles is kind of our last miles of this eastern prairie, this really wide open, fire-dominated area, and then we're gonna make a sharp turn into the middle fork of the Swanee River, and we're gonna catch the current of the river, and it's gonna really change from there. Really dense cypress forest, gonna be a lot more closed in than we had over yesterday and this morning.
Cool.
The Swanee River is just a beautiful river from start to finish. It starts right here in the Okefenokee. This is the headwaters of the river. And from where we are, you know, up at the middle fork, it's gonna be over 240 miles all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, where it empties out right at Lower Suwannee National Wildlife Refuge. So it starts in a wildlife refuge, finishes in a wildlife refuge, and it's just a gorgeous river along the way. And you're able to do a full river trip from the Okefenokee to the Gulf over the course of about 2 weeks.
I love how you go from these tight little corridors to these open prairies.
This eastern prairie all over the Okefenokee, the wide open areas are really evidence of the fires that have burned through here. Anywhere we see this open grassland, it means there's pretty recent fire impacts. And especially the eastern side of the Okefenokee is a really fire dependent ecosystem. And when the fires are really intense, when we get what we call a prairie making fire, it'll actually burn down into that peat layer, excavating out the bottom of the swamp and forming new ponds and lakes. And that's all the standing water we see out here is evidence of that fire as well. If we get a deep lake or pond, that's because fire has burned the peat to excavate that out.
Oh, wow. Huh.
This eastern prairie area, a lot of it appears very wide open, grassland, and that's because of very heavy fire impacts. It's a fire-dependent ecosystem. Fires will burn through, clearing out the forest and the brush, opening it back up to a wide open grassland, and that's a fantastic beneficial cycle. There's so much wildlife that loves these very open areas, and in the plant community in the years after the burn is just beautiful. As we get over to the western side of the Okefenokee, the environment really changes around us, from the very open eastern prairie to the huge bald cypress forest that dominates the western side, and it's going to be beautiful along the way for the next 2 days. Just gorgeous, large cypress forest, even growing out into the water around us. It's just like an iconic, beautiful scene.
My neck was already sore from looking back and forth and checking out everything down below, and now my neck is going to get doubly sore because I have to look up.
One of the things I love about multi-day trips is you have time to go through very different ecosystems, and things have changed a lot today. We've gotten into some gorgeous big cypress trees with beautiful Spanish moss hanging off of it. There's been tight sections, there's been wide sections with pads. It's really been a beautiful transformation and shown a whole different side of the swamp.
So we've been making some good time here.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we?
Oh, we are right here, just past mile marker 18, where we see the little paddler icon on the map.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, we left Mall Hammock out in the open prairie. You can see all the open water on that map. Made that sharp left-hand turn into the middle fork of the Suwannee, and we've been feeling that river current. And now it's really channelizing into this deep forest. You can tell on the map.
Yeah.
It's tightening in around us. We see more of that dark green of the heavy forest, and we're feeling this great shade.
So 3 miles of heavier forest straight south, pretty much.
Yep, yeah, and then Big Water is a nice open spot. Cypress forest around its beautiful location.
Well, we're gonna get to camp with plenty of time. But not if we don't get moving. Home sweet home.
When we came around the corner and saw Mall Hammock Shelter last night, I remember saying to myself, wow, that is one of the coolest campsites I've ever seen. And then I saw Big Water Shelter. That is also one of the coolest campsites I've ever seen, in one of the most Jurassic-like settings.
Oh-wee. Well, those 9 miles were quite a bit easier. Having the current of the Suwannee today really made a difference, and wow, what a spectacular section of water. But now, I wonder what Chef Dan has up his sleeve for dinner.
One of the things I love about backcountry canoeing is the ability to haul gear and to put a cooler right there in the boat. You can eat so well out here, and that really elevates the experience to come out to one of these platforms and eat a great meal. And I'm as excited about food in the evening and coffee in the morning as I am about anything out here. Boop. Cheers.
Well, another great day in Okefenokee, but this day has to end because these mosquitoes say so, and so it's bedtime.